Good afternoon to everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. We're delighted to have you here. If you like, you can put in the chat column where you're from, what sort of establishment you're part of, if you're mainstream or if you're in a more specialised establishment. By all means, put that in the chat just to give us a flavour of who's all here today. We're holding this meeting because we realise in Education Scotland and through the RAISE programme that there's a definite need for support in the ASN sector. We also fully acknowledge that that's a very wide and varied sector, from just additional supports in mainstream to much more specific needs in children with severe and complex needs. So although we're starting this today as a very general meeting, and we've got our second one in is it a week, Laura? Next week it is? Yeah, next week. They're two very separate sessions. We've got 4 presenters this time, and we've also got the same again next time. So what we plan to do is just to give you a flavour of some of the professional learning. Hi Fran, great that you've joined us. Some of the professional learning that's out there already for you, some of the things that your learners can get involved in as well. But very much what we want to do is to start this group as an ASN STEM group, and you'll see you probably got an invitation to join the STEM Nation webinars group as well. And on there we've got primary and early years as well. And the whole point is to try and set up a network of people who, like yourselves, are interested in STEM in the ASN sector, and to try and find out how best to support you in doing this. So although we've got these 2 introductory sessions set up today, what we're hoping at the end of both of these sessions is for you to give us feedback on what you're looking for, because we very much want to be driven by your needs, not what we have decided you need, but more what you think you need and you would like us to look into, with the hope of perhaps running some more webinars after the summer once you're all back after being well rested over the summer. So just before we start, I'm just going to introduce people that are on the call. I'm joined by my colleague Laura Mccaffrey from RAISE, and she also works with us in Education Scotland, so she's part of the Wood Foundation programme, and they're about raising aspirations in science and STEM for education, especially in primary, but they are bridging into just about every sector, much like ourselves. My name is Lynn Yenica, and I'm one of the STEM education officers, and we have STEM education officers in every single region. So if you're in a region and you think you don't know who that is, by all means ask, and we will get that information to you. There is somebody in all the regions. I cover the southeast. Gosh, I'm relocating myself there. I'm in the southeast. But as I say, we work as a national team as well, so we very much support each other, and although she's committed elsewhere just now, Mary Thompson's going to be joining us too, and she's from Forth Valley and West Lothian region. And as I say, we've got somebody in just about every region who is more than happy to support yourselves with any of your STEM needs and any professional learning that we can point you to. As I said, this session we're very lucky to be joined by Rob Butler from the Association of Science Education. We're also joined by Jane Essex from the University of Strathclyde, Stephen Hendry from the Royal Society of Chemistry, and Lorraine Lemon from Dundee Science Centre. Now I'm going to let them introduce themselves a bit more fully because I don't want to go on too long because I'm conscious of Rob's time. But we're very happy to have them here, and they've agreed to give up their time to come along today to share with you the sort of things that are on offer with the associations that they're part of. You will, as I said, got a message to join the GLOW team, and we'd still like you to do that because we do want you to join that, because that's where any conversations will be posted. We are also recording today's session, so there'll be a link to the recording posted on the GLOW team site as well for you to go back and have a look at or share with colleagues if you want to in your establishments. And it's very much a space where hopefully you can talk to each other. I am conscious that you'll probably want to ask questions. The only time I'm going to allow questions is after Rob's quick input. and then at the end we'll come back to questions for everybody else, because I'm conscious that the time is of the essence for everybody. But if you've got any questions during this session, then please do pop anything into the chat at the time, and we will come back to those questions at the end of the session. And at the end of the session, we're also going to go through some more pointers from Education Scotland and from RAISE about things to do with STEM that you can perhaps get involved in. So without more ado, I'm going to ask Laura to, maybe could you just flash up the next slide very briefly, Laura, just to let people see what's happening. So yeah, as you can see, the speakers that I've said are going to introduce themselves. Then our STEM team will give you a little bit of update on grants and what we're hoping to do next, and then there'll be a chance for questions and comments and feedback. Okay, Laura, I'm going to ask you to stop sharing and let Rob share, and then I'm just going to hand over to you, Rob, and by all means introduce yourself more fully than I have done. And I'll keep an eye on the chat just in case there's anything comes up that we want to ask you at the time, since you're disappearing off to another meeting. Thanks, Rob.
Brilliant. Hope you everyone can hear me and see my slides. It's one of those unfortunate, my diary sort of has these hot spots where it's empty for days and then everybody chooses the same day, and this was one of the days that everybody had chosen. So apologies for sort of the present and run approach, but I just wanted to sort of, because the next week I tend to do a lot of twilights with STEM learning in England as well, so it's quite a busy sort of time of day for me as well, this sort of after school slot. So I just wanted to speak in my role as a field officer, I suppose, for the Association for Science Education, and to tell you a little bit about what we offer. So as I do that, I thought it's probably a good idea just to introduce myself, because maybe my background has influenced the path I've taken through the ASE as well, so or how I've interpreted my job description at the ASE. So my background is teaching secondary science in England. I spent 25 years teaching, 20 of those in special education in a special school, and have seen, excuse me, that sector certainly change in England over that time as well, from for the better, I think, as we've upskilled as a profession as well. But it's certainly been an interesting 20 years. I'm a chartered science teacher at the ASE, and I'll perhaps just mention that briefly. I think I popped in one slide for that. I've been part of a county or local authority science team, so I used to spend a day a week doing outreach across my local authority, which was again mainstream and mostly mainstream actually. So I've been a deputy head teacher, so in fact I ran the school for a while as well. I'm now field officer for sort of two big regions in the UK, so in England, sort of right in the middle of the East Midlands and Yorkshire and the Humber. So I sort of sit right in the middle of that sort of map of England, and that's sort of my core role, I suppose, with the ASC. I do that sort of most of the time, and I do a bit of dabbling in the projects, work with other people as well. And I've just written a chapter in this book, which if you follow Lee Hofon, who's based at Leeds Trinity on Twitter, she's been flashing a physical copy, because I've not actually seen the hard copy yet, but I wrote the SEND chapter, which is sort of the English terminology, I suppose, for ASN. And that's due out anytime soon. So that's sort of my background. I've used my role with the ASE to promote some of my interests as well. So as I explained who we are, so the ASE is a professional association. We're all about science, teaching and learning. So we're slightly different to some of the other professional bodies who we've got some representation from, because we have a pure focus. We're not interested even in the supply. We are interested in retention of teachers, but we don't get involved in teacher recruitment so much. We certainly, although we want students to be interested in science, we don't necessarily have a vested interest in sort of recruitment to industry or anything like that. So we're wholly focused on science, teaching and learning, and that's across the whole age range, from sort of early years sort of receptions to sort of children starting school all the way through to leaving compulsory education. So that's our background as a professional organisation. We've been around for, and my slides have frozen, which isn't very helpful, is it? Let me just, in fact, it looks like Teams or PowerPoint is having a little bit of a meltdown. It's one of the worst apps on the Mac because it's not been optimized for the new stuff chips Apple use, so it's a bit slow. So we've been around in some form or other for over 100 years, not as we are now, but as organisations that have been around, joined, etc. So we've got a long history in supporting science. We're very focused on membership, member-driven. Most of our funding comes from membership and our journals as well. So members are integral to what we do. We like to think of ourselves as the voice for science and science education. That's sort of ASN forms part of that, and I've certainly been banging that drum along with Jane, who you'll hear from later, in terms of making sure that our voice is heard and the voice of our ASN learners is heard as well. And we're also, just to say, we're a charity, so as a professional body, I suppose it just means we have charitable aims, and sometimes we do things, say for example, for free because that fits our advocacy role as a charity. So what do we offer? We've got membership of the ASE, and it's worth pointing out here that membership of the ASE does support. It's a bit like when people talk about teaching unions fighting for improved paying conditions for everybody. Our voice, our representation to all sorts of government and all bodies represents members and non-members. So membership supports the work we do, and that's why it's really important that we sort of have as many members as possible. I'll mention membership in a moment, but we also have a number of networks. We have conferences and events. We've got publications, and then resources and guidance and things that you'll find sort of on our website, and sort of things that we offer through that route. So membership is charged differently depending on what phase you teach in. We also have a consultant membership, but don't feel you some. I think we leave people to choose what format or which membership category they best identify with. So but the difference is obviously different journals. So primary, if you're a primary member, you get primary magazine. If you're a secondary member, you get SSR, and consultants get a sort of additional magazine on top. So we do offer as well professional registration, as mentioned earlier on. I'm always told to plug our public liability insurance, but to be fair, that's more, I think, in my opinion, a bit of a reassurance, and you get discounts off bookstores, off any face-to-face CPD we run at conferences, that sort of thing. So the prices are there. It's worth mentioning as well that if you are a taxpayer, then you can, just like a lot of professional fees, you can claim a tax allowance against those as well. And we also offer a slightly different pathway for trainees, an escalating digital only format. So it's all the journals are, we run a digital first model anyway, but all of the journals for trainees are digital because the price is so low. But again, access to the journals, the discounts, etc., and trainees get 1 free day at any of our events as well, which actually, when you look at something like the Scottish conference that's coming up, or at the annual conference that's usually somewhere in England, then that does offer good value for money. And if you join in year 1, you'll pay £24. If you join, if you join in the second year, you'll get the last 2 years and so on. So it's a 3-year package. We also offer departmental membership, which is for either a department. In the case of secondary phase schools, or that's 5 users for primary schools. Slightly different format, different package, different materials, and you get 8 users. So again, you don't have to be an individual member. And I have made these slides available, and I did when I put these slides together, I was just recovering from COVID, so I have put together a sort of a slightly more, it feels like a slightly more organised version of this talk as well. And I'm not quite sure what's sort of been going off today, but I sort of feel like my mind's all over the place at the moment. Another thing we offer is professional registration, and I should own up that I also work for the Science Council, so I have got a little bit of a bias here, but we offer professional registration through the Science Council. So that's the opportunity to be a registered science technician, a registered scientist, or a chartered science teacher, and you get that's recognition of what you the skills you bring to your role, and also the sort of knowledge and what the things you do as part of your role. You get letters for postnominals after your name, and it's that instant recognition. And I meant to say it helps with sort of promotion, but I certainly think as somebody who used to interview a lot of people, it certainly makes you stand out. So in terms of networks that we run, and Jane might mention this as well later on, but we sort of run this as a double act. So we decided that this sort of field, this branch of education was very underrepresented. So we set up what we call the Inclusive Science Education Group. You don't have to be an ASE member to join, so don't feel, oh, I can't, or maybe if you work on the periphery, so you're not in a classroom, but you work with schools, whatever, then we'd love to have you join in. We're not very formal, so we run it as a mailing list, and we hold, so it's that you sign up to be on the list. We'll say we're holding a meeting on so-and-so, so I think the next one's the 11th of May, and what the format is, you're welcome to come to a meeting or not. We won't chase you if you don't come. If you do come, you can sit and listen, you can join in, you can ask questions, share ideas. We're totally relaxed about it, and also in terms of sometimes we get approached by people who want answers as well. So for example, somebody said, I've got a visually impaired student in my group, really don't know what to do, and we ran a session on that and some really good ideas. So if you do want to join that, it's dead easy. Go to ase.org.uk/ISE, and there's a sign up form, and that's all there is to it. And obviously, because it's like a mailing list, you can leave at any time. But to be honest, I don't have time to send lots and lots of emails, so you certainly won't get spammed or mail bombed as a result of joining. We've also got things like newsletter. If you're on Twitter, and quite how long the rest of us will be when Elon Musk's finished buying it, I don't know, but there's a hashtag for sort of sciencey chat as well, and a weekly chat on a Monday. So do sort of have a look, see what's going on. It's quite a nice way to reach sort of science educators across the whole of the UK. Plug for our Scotland conference. The programme is linked, and it's also on the ASE website if you go to the events tab, so you can have a look and see if any of the sessions are of interest to you. It's not, you don't turn up blind, you can see what the programme is, but the tickets are selling quite quickly. I know we've sold out of early career teacher tickets already because they've been selling so quickly. So that's coming up not that long, actually, not far away, is it? Also in January, for those of you who want to travel a little further, we've got our annual conference, which is sort of in Sheffield, and that's running from Thursday to Saturday, the 5th of January to the 7th, and that's a huge, in fact, it's the biggest science education conference outside America. We get a huge European contingent because it's the only sort of one of its type, and we're just at the moment taking submissions for workshops next year as well. So I know we've, together with Jane, put in our submission, but pop that on your calendars if it's something you'll be interested in, and also all sorts of face-to-face events. But the events tab on the ASE website is a place to go to keep an eye on what's happening. because of lockdown and COVID, we've run a lot of our events for the last 2 years online, which means that the sort of normal geographic sort of restrictions in terms of travel, getting there, are relaxed. So have a look and see if there's something that's interesting, because you can sort of be there in seconds online. And sort of give you an idea, these are photographs I've taken at some of our events. So this was one of my workshops at the annual conference, the last face-to-face annual conference, because it's been online for the last 2 years, and photos I've taken at regional and national events. Very much the sort of place to be for networking, getting ideas, and meeting up with like-minded teachers. I mentioned the journals earlier on. SSR is the secondary school science review, so that's the one that the journal that secondary members get. It's changing format, so I won't say too much about that, but it might not look the same going forward if you've seen it in the past. Primary Science is my favourite. That's the primary phase magazine. It's sort of glossy, lots of photos, dead easy. Both those are peer reviewed. Education in Science is our house magazine. So that goes to every member, whether you're primary, secondary. It's got sections for things like technicians, early career. We've got additional support needs sort of section, an SAND section, and so there's hopefully there's something in for all members. And the Journal of Emergent Science is open access. You can dip in and out of that. International for international members, and Science Teacher Education. It speaks for itself, but that's for our futures members. And what I've put together, which in the list I've resources I've passed on, a selection of sort of past articles, just to give you a flavour, because it's all right saying this is what you get, but unless you can have a look at them, and I can't bring physical copies of magazines over Teams, so I've just picked out 1 or 2 articles that might be interesting, and you're welcome to read those. We've got a bookshop. Members get a discount off all our publications. If we get a bigger discount if they're ones where the copyright resides with the ASE, because obviously we're able to discount them. And sort of really useful publications like The Language of Maths in Science, which is for sort of more of a secondary phase publication, but we know that there are issues around sort of language of maths and sometimes discrepancies in subject areas. So do follow, if you're on social media again, follow our Millgate House bookstore, and we'll keep an eye out for those deals. But in terms of the ASE, we work with all sorts of bodies that have an interest in science education. We have a number of best practice documents. They're always being reviewed and updated. They're not particularly exciting, but they are useful. And we're looking at if you do download them and think, oh, that could be better, do let us know, because we're always thinking of ways to make them more accessible. And what could you do? Join, come along, meet people. We're always looking for people to contribute, whether that's to help run workshops, teach meets, write articles, join committees, and even join in with some of the projects. For example, we've got a fully funded project on keeping science practical this year, and we only have, I think, one Scottish school, and it is open to the whole of the UK, but it's been really hard to get the word out. So we'd like to see a few more Scottish schools taking part in that next year. So that's me, that's our offer as the ASE. I hate to sort of present and run, so there's my email address. I've also popped there details for Tessa's email address. Tess is field officer for Scotland. Obviously she's based in Scotland, so she's sort of far more aware, I suppose, of what happens. Thanks to Jane, my Scotland knowledge is rapidly improving. And it always seems for everything, especially everything seems so sensible and compared to the English system. So but I'm always happy for people to drop me an email or to tweet, so message me on Twitter. Although email is probably the best way, because it's something that I check as part of my workflow. And thank you for listening. Thank you for your time. And Lynn, you do have my slides, don't you? So you're able to
Yeah, Laura's got the slides, so we'll be we'll be putting them up on our site. And if anybody wants to ask Rob anything, then by all means get in touch and we'll forward the email. Sorry, I'll start that again. The email addresses will also be on the Glow Team site as well, so that if you want to contact them. I did just put in the chat, Rob, that I actually get emails from yourself, that I'm not signed up to ASE, but I do get emails, and they include upcoming events and also notes on some of the meetings as well, which I've found quite useful. The name of the group team site is, we'll put that up at the end, Kirsty. We've got that on our last slide, so you can join the team site there. We'll put the link in the chat for you for joining the team site. Rob, thank you very much. I don't want to keep you because I know your next meeting starts at 1:30.
No, I should just...
So I know it's a cut and run for you, but thank you so much for coming along, and we'll be back in touch with you. Thank you.
And so I say, drop me an email if you've got any questions.
Will do, Rob. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. So I'm now going to hand over to Jane Essex, and again I'll let Jane introduce herself and tell you a little bit about her background. And Jane, do you want to share your slide, or do you want Laura to share your slide?
I'll have a go at sharing it.
Okay, good luck.
My computer has been quite slow because it needs a really good clear out. So
that's what the summers are for, I find.
Bring it on.
Yeah. Kirsty, just while we're waiting on Jane getting that slide up, Mary's put the link in for the Glow users, so you can go in there and request to join the team, and one of us will accept you, and then you'll have access to the team site. Jane, this looks promising.
Right, yes, it
Yep,
looks
there we go.
very small
That's you.
From where I'm standing, but maybe that's just my
No,
old...
it's okay. I can read it, yeah.
Okay. Okay, I'm Jane. I work at the University of Strathclyde. You can hear I didn't start my life journey in Scotland, but I'm very happy I've come here to do the last phase of my working life and to stay on. I've been a mainstream chemistry teacher. I'm an active, well, I was going to say member of the Royal Society of Chemistry, probably thorn in their side sometimes. But I was a chemistry specialist in school for 16 years, but I've always had this real, interest, or some would say passion / obsession about exceptional learners. Part of that's personal. I have a sister with complex additional support needs, and partly it's just that as a teacher, I always found them the most interesting of my classes. And I got really interested in why, I don't know, their experience of science could be quite bad, that people expected little of them. They were very dismissive of them, you know, all those horrible comments about, oh, what do you expect of children like this? And I've tried to link that personal and professional interest to a research career, which I'm going to be quite honest and say has been modest, but I've had a lot of fun, and to lots and lots of professional practice. I research almost any aspect of science or STEM to do with learners with ASN. My particular focus is those with intellectual disabilities, global learning difficulties, whatever you call it. But anybody else who might be left out from the STEM feast, I'm interested in helping them in. I've done quite a lot of practical work running inclusive events like inclusive and accessible chemistry festivals at Strathclyde. Very lucky to have a wonderfully supportive set of colleagues over in chemistry who've given me the use of rooms and facilities and been really welcoming to diverse learners. And my current project, be warned, don't sit still, I'll grab you for something, is I managed to round up last summer 9 colleagues, all sort of cutting edge researchers in science, technology, engineering, maths, architecture, and persuaded them to do an inclusive and accessible STEM summer school out at Culzean Castle. And we've taught the youngsters all sorts of things about how research would enhance sustainability. And I'm really interested in how you can help really amazing cutting edge STEM practitioners comfortable and happy to work with very diverse learners, because our experience last summer was that it was transformative for both the young people who you see here climbing up the hill and the academic staff and researchers who came to work with them. And I'm currently having to rein myself in a bit because I'm actually writing a book about teaching science to diverse learners in secondary schools. But I'm always up for projects. I'm always up for bidding for money to do things. And I'd be happy if anybody wanted to follow through. And as Rob's already indicated, he and I coordinate the ASC group, which is a friendly teacher mutual support group. It's not about experts telling you how to do your job. And that is me. Hey, Arlen.
Thanks, Jane. That was great. We're a wee bit ahead of time, I think, again. So if anybody's got any questions that they want to ask Jane just now, quite happy to take a couple of questions if anybody wants to unmute and come in and ask anything. Jane, I don't know whether you want to talk a little bit about your Tunnocks challenge that you did as well. That was I followed that eagerly on Twitter last year.
Because one of my sort of beliefs is that learners are much more interested in STEM that they see as being relevant to them. During the lockdown, when I couldn't have my beloved inclusive and accessible chemistry festival, I wrote activities and sent them around to schools that were to do with STEM that you could do even if you didn't have a lab. So if you're in an alternative provision and you have a microwave or a kettle, you could do these activities. And they were surprisingly popular, and Tunnocks were very supportive of it and donated lots. It certainly is, Mary. It's a fantastic group, not because I'm part of it, but because of the wonderful 180 people who stay involved. Tunnocks were very generous. They sent enormous boxes of caramel wafers out to the winners of the competition. And although, because it was remote, I couldn't set sort of stipulations about who could do the contest. Whereas for something I run at the university, I say, I want children with ASN or children who for other reasons might not be normally considered for coming into a STEM outreach day at the university. Interestingly, a number of teachers wrote to say, well, interesting, I saw better outcomes from children with ASN on these activities than I've seen all year, because they actually know what a Tunnocks wafer is and they could kind of see the point of designing a good one and stuff. I think it was a quiet success, I'll say, Lynn.
Too quiet, because I thought it deserved more recognition than it got. And I would also like to say, Jane's been very modest. Jane has written a number of papers, which I have read because I was studying inclusion last year, and she's written a number of papers about science with ASN learners and children with special needs that are well worth looking up and having a read through if you're the sort of person that likes to get your teeth into the background of all of this. I'm just checking all these comments in the chat.
Have I worked with primary? No, but I had. I worked, gosh, would it be 3 years ago? No, 4 years ago, probably now, with a school in West London. Just after I've left a university in West London, they invited me to help them set up science in a school for children with complex ASN. So many of the young people there were working at outcomes that might be closer to primary. And I honestly didn't know how that would go, but actually there wasn't a child in the school who didn't really get something out of the science, including the so-called sensory learners. You know, these are the children who may be in a hospital bed being ventilated and tube fed through the school day. When the blue science box came out the cupboard, they all blinked faster. It was really something to see how committed staff with a bit of science support from me could make science something really great for their learners. I do work with our primary undergraduates, I'm increasingly working with science for primary, but focusing on inclusion. And I'm hoping that that will grow up over the next couple of years. But I'm always up for working with people that I have less experience with, because I always say I've got less experience with them so far. And learners are learners to me, and it's my job as a teacher to find out more about their particular way of learning and what they need to learn well. So I'd certainly be happy to, Mrs. Gray, if you've got anything for me, bring it on.
There you are. You can't get a better idea than that somebody's actually willing to engage with us. So Jane, I'd like to thank you for coming along today. Oh, Mrs. Gray's just typed something else. Many of our complex primaries are working towards the curriculum and they're all showing an interest in STEM. Definitely love to get in touch. That's great. That's really nice.
And the other thing, can I just, follow up with Mrs. Gray? I was in Limerick quite recently and was invited into a school there with children with complex ASN or the equivalent of, and the school I worked with was really interested in sort of twinning up with other schools who wanted to do STEM with these learners, and he introduced them to the school in West London. But Mrs. Gray, I don't see why a three-way twinning, what would that be, tripleting I suppose, but I think this is, for me, the best thing I can do is to facilitate teachers who are sorting things out for themselves.
Absolutely,
so,
yeah.
Please get in touch. I'm on the Strathclyde website. I'm the only Essex girl there again.
I love that, the Essex girl.
Oh yes, I'm blonde.
That brings up all sorts of connotations that you probably would rather avoid.
But yeah, Mrs. Gray, please drop me an email.
That's great. Thanks, Jane. Laura, I'm going to hand over to you.
Perfect, thank you. That was really good. And just to reiterate as well, if you want to find out more about the Tunnocks Challenge, I would highly recommend that as well. The children that I did it with absolutely loved it. So I would recommend that resource. Jane, could you stop sharing your screen just so that we can pass on to Stephen to share his, if that's okay?
Of course, apologies, Stephen.
Perfect, thank you. Great. So,
Laura, could you just say if anybody wants those resources for the Wafer Challenge, very happy to email them again, drop me an email.
Perfect, that would be great.
And we
actually,
have them in Gaelic too.
If you just share them with me, I could maybe put them on the Teams site. That would be great if you just send them over.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Great, thank you. Perfect. And then I would like to pass on to Stephen from the Royal Society of Chemistry. Thanks very much, Stephen.
No problem at all. Can you see that okay? Is it on the right slide? Yeah, fantastic. Excellent. Thank you very much. Yeah, just following on from Jane and Rob, truly inspirational, outstanding work that they do. So my name's Stephen Hendry. I am an education coordinator. I cover the whole of Scotland and I work for the Royal Society of Chemistry. My contact details are here. Before we get started, the first thing that you can take away is everything that we offer is fully funded by the Royal Society of Chemistry. That means it's free. There is no cost to you. We offer professional development for primary teachers, secondary teachers, technicians, student teachers, and that covers all different pupils as well. So in particular, additional support needs. We are more than happy to come out. We can discuss the support, the resources that we have available, and we can offer tailor and bespoke sessions specifically to the Scottish curriculum. So please get in touch again if you've got any questions or anything I can do to help. Now, this is our resources, so I'm just going to run through our resources very quickly. You will have all of these slides, so you'll be able to go through them. But again, just get in touch if you're looking for anything specific or you want me to pull anything out for you. So this is our Education and Chemistry website. On here, you can search through the resources. You can also filter the resources. We have our Education and Chemistry magazine. This is written by teachers for teachers, all talking about teaching practice, how you can embed different ideas. And if you want to search for anything else, you can search up the top right-hand corner. If we search, so if we take, for example, chemical changes, these are all of the resources that we have linked to chemical changes. And again, down the left-hand side, you can filter out by specification, so by region within the UK and Ireland, by category, by level that you're wanting to teach at, by use, whether you're looking for a handout, practical, resource, and again, by day or by rating. If we go up to the top, so if we click on IMA, and then we click here, it will take us to primary teacher, secondary teacher, technician, and in here we've got each of our own pages for our dedicated resources, but I'm just going to touch on our primary resources. So if we click on primary teacher, it will take us to our steps into science resources. These resources are separated for 4 to 7, 7 to 9 and 9 to 11. So for our 4 to 7, we're looking at grouping, we're looking at the resources, so talking about investigative science. We've got a couple of activities that you can use, experiments, specifically for that age range. 7 to 9, we start to look into some of the investigations, we start to look at some hypotheses, we ask questions, what do you think is going to happen, and try and get them to come up with their own ideas and answers. And then we go to 9 to 11 where we start going into a little bit of investigations, into a little bit more detail, looking at the data that you're collecting, links with literacy, numeracy, well-being, etc. As we're in Scotland, we have linked all of the resources for our primary are linked to the Scottish curriculum. All of our secondary resources are also linked to the Scottish curriculum under our Curriculum Explorer. So if we go into the Scottish page, all of the learning outcomes and objectives that you have to hit are here. And as you can see, you can click on the hyperlink. And I like to think of this as a reverse search. So you might not know what type of activity you're looking for, but you know what learning intention that you want to achieve. If we click, again, if we go to the home page, Education and Chemistry, it will take us to our magazine. And again, we've got lots of different articles, opinion pieces, written by teachers, so ideas to support your teaching practice. We've got news, views and perspectives. We've got cutting edge research. And in particular, we have our suite of articles that were written by Jane and Rob, looking at how we can improve science for all. So how can we support diverse learners? There's 4 different articles that you can read in, hints and tips, how to deliver it in the classroom, what works well, any ways that you can support your teaching. So again, lots and lots of stuff available there. I should have mentioned, so take home message, all of our resources, they are easily accessible, they're low hazard, so specifically for primary, but they are also risk assessed for secondary as well. These resources come alongside teacher notes, how to use in your classroom as well. So linked to the Scottish curriculum, and they've been risk assessed by CLEAPS, which is the equivalent of CERC in England. So we've got CLEAPS and CERC for Scotland. So they've been double badged and double risk assessed essentially. Everything that we have to offer is free, but we are a registered charity, so that we ask that you register for an account. All you have to do is put in an email address and a password, and you will have unlimited access to all of our resources and articles. The reason that we ask, we're a registered charity, so we have to keep a track of how many people are using our resources, how many people are signing up. So that's the reason that we ask you to register. But as I say, everything is free, unlimited as well. Looking at some of our practical demonstrations. So again, we have videos. So to support you in your teaching, this is a conversation here. So the teacher's talking about how she would use it in her classroom, and you're demonstrating the activity. So you're able to see it in advance and plan how you would use that in your classroom. Lots of different activities. I've just taken 6 off the top, but there's loads to go into looking at different areas of the scientific topic. During lockdown, we also created our chemistry in your cupboard resources. So these resources are specific for home learning. Again, easily accessible, low hazard. with everyday items that you would find in your kitchen. I've got one on there as well, liquid armour. So we are making corn flour and water, and we're seeing if the egg smashes. So we're looking at liquid armour. So lots of really good stuff on there, a whole range, a whole playlist of resources. And again, all of these are in the slides. We have joined TikTok now. I know TikTok, I think, is aged for pupils that are around about 13. I think that's the age range that it's targeted at, so it might not be suitable for the primary pupils. But you can go on here, you can look at some of these videos, you can maybe download them, you can embed them into your own presentation. They're short snippets of different scientific topics coming up and different activities and experiments that you can try in your classroom. So again, it might be something you want to look at, something you might want to get some inspiration from. As well as that, you know, as Jane mentioned earlier on, it's important that we contextualise everything that we do. We show them the pathway, we show them the future that they can go into. And on our Future in Chemistry, we have our career presentations, we have interactive games, we've got activities asking them to look about and whereabouts is the science, where's the chemistry all around them. Each of our presentations come with a different person doing a different topic, and we have a video recording of them discussing their background, how they got into science. We've got a little bit about their careers, the career options, and their pathway into science. And again, we have our Making the Difference interactive games on here. You click play, you answer a couple of questions, and then it assigns you to a famous scientific celebrity as well. Finally, show me the money. So the Royal Society of Chemistry, we have money available. We have up to £1,000, up to £3,000 for practical activities. We have teacher empowerment, we have outreach, we have inclusion and diversity. Too much to put into a 10-minute presentation, so please get in touch with me. If you're looking for anything, get in touch. If I'm not able to answer the question, I will be able to use our networks across Scotland, across the UK and Ireland as well, and hopefully I'll be able to answer any question that you have. Thank you very much for listening to the conversation, and any questions, please do not hesitate to get in touch.
Perfect, thank you, Stephen. That was a whistle-stop tour, but the resources are absolutely amazing. I could thoroughly recommend all the resources on the website too, so thank you for that. Are there any questions for Stephen just now before we move on?
There was a quick one. I noticed your resources were 4 to 7 in the first age group. We did have Julie asking about if there was more resources for early years, say down to 3 years. Jane's very kindly supplied a link to some work that Dr. Kirsty Ross has been doing. But just to confirm, you just go down to age 4 then, Stephen?
So there are early learning resources. This is something that we're currently working on. So we recently launched the primary website just last year, and moving forward, this is something that, you know, we're going to target. And again, to be perfectly honest, a lot of these resources can be quite easily adapted for different age ranges. You know, we can start thinking about sensory science. In the past, I've worked with the Royal Institute of the Blind. So we had the 12 Scents of Christmas. We were looking at the scents, we were linking that to the chemistry. So lots of different things in there. We have our edible experiments, and edible experiments are fantastic. Again, you know, that taste, sensory, anything I can do as well. I'm more than happy to sit down and, you know, that's what I was meaning at the beginning, you know, that tailor and bespoke offering. If you're looking for something that's missing, get in touch. And if it's not on a website, we will develop it. We will put it on the website. So I'm here to support you. So just tell me what you want and I will do it. I will go away and get it for you.
Perfect, thank you. That's an offer if ever I heard one. Thanks very much. And now we'll pass over to Lorraine Lemon from the Dundee Science Centre. Thanks, Lorraine.
Brilliant, thank you. I'll just try and share my screen if I can. Let me know if you can see this okay.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, is that okay? Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much for having us today. It's actually brilliant to be able to kind of showcase Dundee Science Centre and what we can and can't do. So Dundee Science Centre, some of you might have visited us and some might not have. We've been around for nearly 22 years, and we've gone through a number of significant changes over the previous couple of years. I think that the biggest part of it is really the way we work, and a complete shift in culture to be more inclusive and more diverse, and making sure that we work on the concept of co-creation and development to really widen our audiences across, all sectors. If I just show you this next slide. So we are a STEM hub for the region. We have recently just completed quite a significant capital project where we have completely replaced all of our ground floor exhibits, and we have also replaced all the facilities as well. So we've put in a change in places toilet. All of our exhibits are completely accessible for all, but we've also kind of looked at things completely differently. So even our signage is completely reflective of the different audiences that we would have. So we have signage that reflects, graphic signage that reflects you can use this, how you would use this exhibit, but we have a wheelchair user, for instance, showcased on it, just to show how diverse our audiences can be. We've got, some amazing exhibition spaces. We've got a big show-stopping waterworks where you can, go fishing. We've got water vortexes. It's just really interactive. Again, we've got virtual operating tables that everybody can engage with. We have completely transformed our coffee shop area. So again, with this inclusive approach to it, so even all of our seating and our booths are all inclusive. So they're made for wheelchair users, for instance. They're also private. So if you needed to do some feeding or such, like, can absolutely do that. And again, our change in places toilet, whilst we're on reduced hours coming out of COVID, we are open to the public 7 days a week. So if someone needs to use the facilities, even if they're in town shopping or what have you, they're welcome to come into the Science Centre to do so. And the schools that have been to us have noted that that's one of the most significant changes in the centre, that they're now able to visit, whereas they weren't before. And in terms of, how we meet our audience needs, it's really through this co-creation process that we have. And, all of our exhibits and our facilities were designed with our assisted needs panel, and you'll see some of their kind of logos just at the bottom of the screen. And it's really, having this panel has really allowed us to take it from all of the exhibits and the facilities from concept, but also through to operational excellence as well. So, things are always changing. What can we do better? What is not working? We have this panel that we can go to say, right, how do we make improvements here? How do we change this so that we're more inclusive? It's a really great panel that we lean on quite significantly. Again, accessibility training for all of our team. So as and when there is training that we think is suitable for the team to go on, that we really need to be able to reach and engage with our audiences, we put the team on that. And what I would like to share with you now, I hope it actually works. If it doesn't, my colleague George will pop the link into the chat. But what we have here is I'm giving you all a bit of a preview. We've just got our first draft version of a little video that we've done, which is a point of view video from this little chap called Leo, who helps us out. He's one of our regular models, and he's our sensory bag quality checker. So he goes through and actually checks that the bag is fit for purpose. And he's also about to celebrate his 5th birthday with us as well in the centre. So again, the centre is not just about learning, it's also about these life experiences. And birthday parties are super important to 5-year-olds. So I'm just going to play this video. It's about 2.5 minutes, and it really takes you through a walkthrough of what the centre is like now. So I'll just play that if that's okay. Let's see if that works. Perfect. Yeah, so that kind of shows just a little bit of what the centre actually looks like now, and all of the accessibility that we've kind of put in there, in particular the sensory zone, which is definitely a much quieter space, and our audiences are definitely enjoying that. So how can we support you kind of moving forward? So Dundee Science Centre is an approved supplier on the Children and Family Services for Dundee, Angus, Perth and Ross regions. So if you did want to access funds within school to actually visit the centre, we are on the approved list, so it makes the process a lot easier. We also have a whole bunch of funding pots available to us that we can support with admission costs as well as travel costs. And again, travel costs could be taxis, they could be trains. I know a lot of your schools will have specific transport for the children, but if there was anything like that, we certainly get in touch with us and we can see what we can make available for you. And then moving forward, what we are in the process of doing is we have a very strong learning program that focuses on our primary and secondary level, but what we are now kind of looking at is securing funding to help us support the creation of a curriculum-based program that is suitable for our ASN youngsters. And again, supporting those particular programs with CLPL sessions. So that's one of the things that we will be doing, and it's yeah, really interesting to hear from some of the speakers today, because I'll definitely be in touch. I think there might be some joint collaboration that we might be able to have there. And then yeah, so that is pretty much Dundee Science Centre. And yeah, if anybody has any questions, I think there might have been, was there any questions in the chat that I might have missed? No, I don't think there was. Yeah, happy to take any questions at the moment, or shall we leave that to the end, Lynn? What would you prefer timing wise?
I think, well, we've come to the end of the speakers, so I'm quite happy. We have asked at the end of each of the speakers if anybody wanted to ask any questions. So if anybody does have any questions, I know perhaps one of the questions might be the fact that Lorraine mentioned the Dundee Science Centre and the subsidised to certain areas. You should be aware that that's the case for all the science centres across Scotland. They do tend to focus into the local authorities round about them. So Glasgow, Dynamic Earth and Aberdeen all have these sort of subsidies on offer for their own science centres. And we do have Dynamic Earth coming to the next session as well. But just in case you were thinking that's a bit unfair, that's obviously the way it has to be done, and Dundee has to localise where they can subsidise. But again, those bursaries for transport and admission fees, those are usually available from most science centres as well. So it's definitely worth getting in touch with your science centre and asking about those bursaries. I'll just open it. Does anybody have any questions? Anybody want to stick their hand up and ask any questions about Dundee? Not at the moment, but again, if you've got a question, you're more than welcome to put that in the chat and we can come back to it afterwards. We will just move on to the next section. Thank you so much, Lorraine. That was really, enjoyed the little video as well. It was nice to see. What I liked was it was obviously the grandparents as well with Leo, which was lovely to see. So it was that generational involvement as well was really nice. Mary, I'm wondering if you would like to come on and give us a little update on the STEM grants.
Sure, thanks Lynn, thanks very much. Folks, I have been kind of responding to requests to join the GLOW team, and hopefully people have managed to see that as they've come through, and have popped the resources in that Jane was talking about too, so hope you'll see them too. Yeah, just want to kind of obviously tell you a little about the STEM grants programme. I think Laura's got the slides, maybe she can pop them up. I can pop a wee link in. At the moment we have, thanks Laura, we have £200,000 available for STEM professional learning grants, and we have £200,000 available for STEM, for so numeracy, maths and for STEM grants. You'll see a wee QR code there on the screen. The round 4 is available live, and there's a link here that I'll just pop into the chat, and you should be able to find out a wee bit more about kind of guidance for them. So you can see we've got a kind of deadline of the 11th of May. And the application form is now live. So what we're really encouraging is schools and settings and community learning development, early learning and childcare, primary, secondary. Again, it's right across the kind of spectrum of sectors and settings to be able to work with others in partnership to think about your own professional learning needs and what professional learning you would feel would be appropriate for you. So again, additional support needs is something that so far has been underserved in the previous rounds 1, 2 and 3. So this round, in round 4, we're really, really keen to see practitioners and settings coming forwards together to say, actually, we know what we want to be able to learn about together to enhance our own knowledge and to benefit our learners, as we've heard this evening. So again, really, really keen. We have a number of engagement sessions coming up, and we'll pop the link into so that you can find out a bit more about that. And together with my colleagues, Lynn, Laura and others in the STEM team, we're really keen to discuss with you some potential ideas for professional learning bids and to help you scope that together ahead of the deadline. So I'll pop in the links, but really, really keen to think about what you might be looking for your own professional learning in STEM and to support you with that. So I'll pop in the links. Hopefully if you've got a QR code you can scan the details and you'll find them ahead of me popping the links in. But yeah, that's probably much all that I want to say, Lynn. Just, you know,
that's
really
great, Mary.
Support.
We have had a couple of ASN centres who did apply and were successful for grants in the last couple of years, as Mary says, quite underserved. But we are actually, and again, this is for your feedback at the end of this session, if you think it would be useful to hear from those grantees who were successful and used the grant money to develop some professional learning. One in Edinburgh was engineering in sort of at secondary level for ASN, and we've a couple of other ones on our books as well that we're quite happy to ask them to come along and share their story with you. That could possibly be one session after the summer. I know it's not much good to you just now if you're applying, I will just point out as well that the person that Jane mentioned earlier, Dr. Kirsty Ross, she's actually also based in Midlothian, and she actually was one of our successful grantees as well in the early years sector for developing STEM. So very much as Mary says, we're really looking for people to get involved with the STEM grants, especially across ASN, because it has been underserved, therefore stands a very good chance. We know today's been very science-based, mostly because I knew that Stephen and Rob and Jane linked together, so it made sense to have them all here together. But obviously the STEM is not just science-based, it is your technology, it is your engineering, and it is your maths. So the STEM grants are for all of those. They're not a science-based grant scheme. It is very much for STEM, and we do have that lack again in engineering, which is perhaps something that somebody might feel that they also maybe want to develop some professional learning. As Mary said, there's the drop-in sessions. They're carrying on running up till the close of the grant applications, which is not that far away this year. So absolutely, please come along to those.
Lynn, I'm
using
just
the
going to
links.
pop in a wee link to the Abercorn, because Abercorn's a setting in Glasgow, and in previous round it worked with a number of settings across the kind of West Partnership, and they did created a kind of Google resource that covered all the different aspects of STEM for their learners, and it's obviously a digital resource, so I'll pop the link into that, the Google slide for that, and hopefully that'll be of use to people, maybe generate some ideas. But yeah, we're really keen to engage with you between now and 2 weeks tomorrow, to support you with what you think would be helpful.
Yep. And just before we pass on to the next bit, I did notice in the chat there was the link in for the Young STEM Leaders programme, which again, very useful to run in your school, or to work with another school who's actually running the STEM Leader programme and maybe want to have their young STEM leaders come in and help your learners. That link's also in the chat as well, and Mary's now put in the Abercrombie one as well. So again, as Mary said, we're very happy to help support applications for the grants from establishments. Jane, I see you've got your hand up.
Sorry, just to interrupt and say that I spoke to Jamie Menzies at CERC about the Young STEM Leader Programme very recently, and this summer we're hopefully, if we get the money we've applied for, going to run a pilot where older pupils with ASN will be working with academics from the university. So I think with these Young STEM Leader Programme to teach some STEM to some of the younger pupils in the school, I think there's a lot of scope for interesting collaboration using the Young STEM Leader Programme as a sort of nucleus around which to gather interested people from various organisations.
Yeah, absolutely.
And CERC and the Young STEM Leader Programme team are really interested in making it work for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Jane. Okay, so Laura, can I move back to you for what's next?
Yep, perfect. I'm just going to go to the next slide if it will move on. That's on a go slow now. I'll just wait for that to catch up. But basically what we were thinking was today obviously has been a really quick whistle-stop tour and introduction to all of these amazing possibilities and things, experience that people have. And Lynn and I and Mary are really conscious that we are not experts in the ASN field. However, we recognise that there's an ask and a want and a desire to have such a network to come together to be able to get CLPL. And when we started initially just with the small Raise ASN network, people kept giving the same feedback of, we really want bespoke CLPL, we really want bespoke resources rather than always adapting what already exists. So what we're keen to find out from yourselves is what next, what would you like next? So this has been like an introductory session where we've got some information, but very short and very brief. Do you want to have more in-depth sessions from our speakers and presenters that have been here this evening? Are you looking for maybe, like Lynn mentioned earlier, STEM isn't just about science, so would you like to have some of the people from the Education Scotland digital team or the maths team come along, or the inclusion team come and present to yourselves? Do you want to have a space where you can network together to come up with resources that you can share. So basically right now it's a lot of questions of what would you like and what can we do to support that, so that we can put a plan together over the summer to have something in place for next session. And we're really keen to make sure that it's right for you, but we're also conscious that we're not here to tell you what that should be. You need to tell us so that we can make sure that what we can provide and support with is bespoke to your needs. So that's me, Lynn. I'll pass back to you and I'll try and move to the next slide. I don't know why it's not working.
Jane, I'll come back to you in just a wee second, just to mention that our next session next week, we've got Paul Nisbet from Call Scotland coming along, and I think he's going to maybe speak a bit about dyscalculia. And we've got Fran Hutchison from Dynamic Earth, and we've also got a number of people. Our main one is the DYW group from Edinburgh who are working with ASN, but they have now put us in touch with ASN DYW across the country. So we're hoping some of them might pop along as well, and they are very keen to engage with the ASN learners as well. So that's what's going to happen next week. But it's as Laura said, it's what's going to happen after the summer. That's what we need to find out.